Lamar Jackson, better in the pocket early in his career, not quite as athletic early in his career. But you know I love Lamar. I think Jayden Daniels is Lamar, but will be a better pocket quarterback earlier. There are two rookie quarterbacks that have found an early rhythm. Bo Nix with Sean Payton and Jayden Daniels with Cliff Kingsbury. They look more comfortable than Caleb Williams does. So Cliff Kingsbury may not be a great head coach. Steve Kimes, his former boss, a good friend of mine, Steve said, Cliff's almost too nice to be a head coach at the pro football. He's such a nice guy. But a lot of guys, you know what I mean? There are people out there, they're not great for the job, but they're great at their job. And I think that's Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's a tremendous offensive coordinator, and that's why I picked them to be a playoff team before the season started. I think Dan Quinn, excellent culture builder, defensive guy, toughness. Kingsbury has made Jayden Daniels comfortable. And I've said this with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Bo Nix right now is the game's going really fast for him. But we text yesterday with Sean Payton. They love where he's at, and he's making big chunk strides every week. So, and I think young people more than anybody need support. The older you get, you could be a comedy writer, you could be a sportscaster, you could be a mayor. The older you get, you generally have a team, you're surrounded by people, there's a consistency. But if you look, if you start looking around, these young guys need help. And it's also, and Cliff Kingsbury, a lot of people on the internet, all the trolls on the internet bagged on him. But I mean, Spags, Josh McDaniel, Norv Turner everywhere, Cliff Kingsbury, tremendous coordinators. Go ask any player that's played for Spags, Josh McDaniel. Go ask all the players. Again, they're great at their job. Maybe they're not the job guy. So when I watch Caleb Williams, I see no plan, no run game. Who's his guy? Shane Waldron? Well, Shane Waldron doesn't even get a lot of credit for Geno Smith in Seattle. Somebody else does. I don't know Shane Waldron enough. I don't know enough about him. But Kingsbury's had Mahomes. He's had Kyler Murray. So I was told before the draft, I remember about 3 weeks before the draft, I went out and I said, I've been told they're taking Jayden Daniels. I was told that Cliff Kingsbury went to Dan Quinn and Adam Peters banged the table and said, I've coached this before. It's a combination of Mahomes. It's a combination of Kyler Murray. And I think he plays a little bit like Lamar Jackson. So, by the way, Caleb Williams, Drake May are in defensive cultures. Now, you could say, well, Dan Quinn's a defensive guy, but that's not a defensive culture. Even in Atlanta, Dan Quinn gave the offense to Kyle Shanahan. They made a Super Bowl when the offense popped. So I think Dan's a good coach, but Dan's not one of these guys where it's an oppressive defensive culture. Like Belichick, it's like do your job, sacrifice offensive paychecks. That's not what Dan Quinn is. Dan, last night, you didn't know who the head coach was. Like he lets Cliff run the offense. He let Shanahan run the offense. It's not this big umbrella that weighs down the franchise, and that's why I thought Dan Quinn was a solid hire. So I just look at what I saw last night, and I look at what I saw at Arizona State, LSU, and here, and I think the Cliff Kingsbury hire and the Sean Payton, Bo Nix fit, I think those were the best fits. I think Caleb's got to get new people. I think J.J. McCarthy, and I said this, whoever Minnesota drafted at quarterback would work, whoever it is. We didn't think Sam Darnold was going to become, Josh Allen over 3 or 4 games. But here's Dan Quinn after last night.
He's a really cool customer, and he's got real poise about him. I thought going in, we knew the importance of the ball and, the decision making for that. We just couldn't give them short fields and chances to go. So his ability to know when not to, when to make a play with his legs, I thought we've seen a lot of this at practice, and now it's carrying over into the games where the decision making, sliding, going, taking your shot. But I thought it was a really strong performance tonight by him.
I also have a source that told me very early on that the most impressive part of Jayden Daniels, he was all about the right stuff. He is a grinder. He's about the right stuff. There's no fluff. It's all substance. He cares. He's into it. That's what I heard from him at Arizona State. When I saw him, he was about 158 pounds at Arizona State. And I remember talking to Herm Edwards, having him on a podcast. I'm like, who is that kid? He needs to eat. But who is that kid as a freshman? Then he goes to LSU and Brian Kelly, and LSU guys push back, and he was setting college records. So here's the Washington is so starved for winning. I mean, this was a proud franchise for like ever. Here's some play-by-play from last night.
They got to snap it on a 3rd and 7, and they do. Bengals bring the house. Jayden loads one up for McLaurin in the end zone. Did he catch it? He did! Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! Unreal!
They're going crazy. They literally don't know what to do with themselves. Washington has found a 12-year quarterback. Serious, adult, athletic, good in the pocket. Now, again, the reason I didn't lead with this story is that Cincinnati's defense is 26th in the league, facing a rookie in New England. So their defense outside of one pass rusher is just guys. It doesn't look great. But at this point, for a Bo Nix, I don't care that he doesn't have a touchdown pass. He went on the road and won. And I don't care. I mean, here's the other thing with Jayden Daniels. You notice who he's throwing to? And this is a big thing. He's throwing to the right guys. He knows who the guy is, Terry McLaurin. So it's exciting. It's fun. J-Mac, there was one courageous sportscaster that took Washington to make the playoffs. Do you know who that is?
That was a rare good call by you, Cowherd. Nicely done.
Hurtful.
Barely behind Buffalo in the AFC East. Jets had the big win over the Patriots. Aaron Rodgers looked fantastic. I mean, you can't say enough great stuff about Aaron Rodgers. Well, center Joe Tippmann says Rodgers' play has everyone feeling very confident.
Just to be able to see him bring in that confidence, within his game, it brings a whole new confidence to our whole offense. He's a guy that's, out there communicating, getting us to kind of the right call, right play. He's breaking down the defense before, they're even showing what they have. So for him to be able to do that and getting us on the same page, and then he just gets time to work and, make something happen. And that's what he's phenomenal at doing. So credits to Aaron Rodgers there.
Listen.
Yep.
I will say, we're in the content business. Jets are interesting.
So
I missed them. Like this, when they didn't play this weekend and they didn't play last night, I was looking for some Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah, okay. Should I? All right, so two guys you bailed on, bagged on, ripped on, made fun of, talked about all summer. Brock Purdy and Aaron Rodgers looking pretty good as quarterbacks so far to start the season. Admit that. Forget the records, just the quarterback play from those two.
Well, the Jets have beaten Jacoby Brissett and Will Levis.
That's a good reminder. And let's dovetail right into the Jets schedule this week. It's Bo Nix. Okay, that defense should handle him.
Okay, so this is one of those games that I said last week, Seattle, Miami. I didn't get the line. I thought Seattle was going to pummel them. This is one of those, I don't really get the line, but if you inspect it, the Jets are going to pummel the Broncos because the Broncos have to go all the way to Tampa, go home, all the way to New York with extra rest. So Bo Nix against Aaron Rodgers, Aaron gets extra rest. That is why that number, because when you look at that game, you'd think that's like a 4.5. 7's a blowout. That line is strangely large, and I think it is because they're looking at Aaron with extra time against Bo Nix, having to do work on the plane there and back, a cramped week. And I think the Jets will win convincingly.
And as a reminder, that line was 8. Jets were favored by 8. It was bet down. People think the Broncos, that's too many points.
I think if you're a Bronco fan, here's what you take from this year. Are there going to be moments when you're like, we got the guy? Like when you watch that game against Tampa and you're a Denver fan, you're like, hell yeah, it's a moment. That's a great moment. This is not a good week for you. We talked about early. At Seattle to open was a bad spot for Denver. This is a bad spot for Denver. They're not a great team. If Denver can have 4 or 5 Sundays this year where you're like, we got the quarterback, we got the coach. They got their first Sunday. It wasn't just the win, it was how they won. They dominated a hot team across the country. So Denver and the Jets are living in 2 different universes here. I think Denver has to feel great about Sunday, but this, like the Seattle game, is a bad spot for a rookie quarterback and a young team.
And the Jets, if you remember, went to Denver last year, won with Zach Wilson at quarterback. And then there was the Peyton versus Hackett, remember the chatter? So there's a lot of angles. I just don't want the Jets to overlook, an inferior team because Sam Darnold is on deck the following week That's a huge game. Sam Darnold, Flores, Kevin O'Connell. That's a
But
really
remember,
good
Sam Darnold is facing the Packers this week. So the Vikings are going to be on this incredible emotional high, and they're going to come. It's hard to duplicate that. Like the Rams beat the Niners. You think the Rams are going to play that well? I mean, the Rams